Hey guys, what's up? Thanks for joining another video here on the channel. We are going to conclude the M&M Mars Candy Factory series today with a few remaining subjects. Also going to be sharing some real photographs, probably from the year 2000, and some real photographs that were taken inside the candy factory by somebody who will remain anonymous, because back in those days, cameras were forbidden in manufacturing places. And so they just came to my possession. And so these are some actual photographs from the candy factory from me and some of my coworkers. So that's going to be super interesting to look at. Let's get started. Thanks for joining. So where all can you hide in the candy factory? The candy factory, as you know by now, which has its own merited playlist, respectfully, you know that the candy factory was a gigantic place, ginormous. And if you're listening to the show for the first time, maybe a recap is in order. The M&M Mars Candy Factory here locally, where a lot of us worked. I do actually have a couple of family members that still work there and friends that still work there. So it is everything that you could imagine a candy factory would look like. White floors, white walls, white ceilings, people wearing, lab coats and white uniforms. And the floors are painted white, and everything else is painted safety yellow. The handrails are painted yellow. The door handles may be painted yellow. Stripes on the floor, are painted yellow to make sure you stay out of the way of the fork truck or forklift traffic. Usually that works to keep out of the way of the traffic. Anyway, another video about forklifts. Anyway, they're amazing. Forklifts are awesome. Click like if you have your own forklift certification. Let's see who you are. I've got one. I've got one from Duracell. It's amazing. It's a fun gig. Where was I? Oh, so the place is huge. So I liken it to maybe if you've ever seen movies of people living on an aircraft carrier, where there's just doors beyond doors, stairwells, elevators. It's got that real industrial look that you like to see from movies, or maybe from, some aircraft carrier or a battleship or something. Only the difference is that everything in the candy factory is really it's super bright. So I don't want to say the word cherry, but it's bright white. So it's not a dark, dingy dungeon. It's not like a coal mine factory by no means. It's quite the opposite. But it does have all the mazes. You can get lost easily within 30 minutes if you go down the wrong set of doors and corridors and take a stairwell down to this one and take a left at this door, not the blue door, but the green door. And it's going to take you on and on and on and on. So quickly, within 35, 40 minutes of just going on your own there, you could, in theory, get lost. And that's what some people did on purpose, so they could find themselves a hiding spot. There were many notable hiding spots there. And I'm going to highlight a few of not my favorite hiding spots. I never really hid at work. I like to be busy. But even just going to your assigned areas, or the areas where you were working at that day, it felt like you were hiding. I mean, you were just like in the middle of nowhere. However, you're in just this gigantic candy manufacturing place. It was just a super cool place to work at. And if you're a PlayStation 1 gamer, click like if you've ever played the game Metal Gear Solid. So you will know exactly what I'm talking about. So that's if you know anything about Metal Gear Solid 1 on PlayStation 1 that came out, 100 years ago, an awesome game back in that day. It's got a cult-like following because of how cool it was. But if you've played Metal Gear Solid, you get the idea of what it may look like inside the candy factory. Just paint everything white. And in the game, it's about a guy who's just basically sneaking around this military industrial complex, and he can't really shoot people. He has to really just kind of sneak around them. And that's kind of how it was at work sometimes. We were just kind of sneaking around the place. Anyway, so one of my favorite stories, and I've entitled this one, Sleeping in the Peanut Room. Sleeping in the Peanut Room. So in order for us to make the peanut butter Twix bars, or the peanut butter M&Ms, or the peanut M&Ms and the peanut, some of the candies had peanuts in them. We had gigantic trucks that would haul in peanuts. I mean, tons and tons and tons of peanuts. And so the peanut room was its own separate part of the factory, of course. And the peanuts were contained in these, how would you say? Imagine the most dense cloth. Okay, imagine the most dense cloth, and maybe they were about 6 feet high, and the width of them was about, what is this, 4 feet or something like that. So imagine just this gigantic bag, 6 foot high, 4 foot wide, we'll call it, and maybe another 4 foot. So maybe it's 4 foot square, and it's 5 or 6 feet high, probably 5 foot high, packed full of peanuts, just nothing but raw peanuts. And so multiply that by maybe 100 bags in this gigantic air conditioned room. All right. There was a guy, probably more than one person, because this was a really, really good hiding spot. I feel like this is the number one hiding spot, because even if you were caught, or even if your coworker came to find you, you could easily recover and it not look like you were literally sleeping at work or hiding or something like that. So this is my number one hiding spot. And I never hid at work, but this guy was really, really good at it. And one day we caught him, and it was the funniest thing in the world. Hilarious. So imagine walking into this white room, everything's painted white. And then now you've got these gigantic white bags full of peanuts. And alongside the wall is this guy that's halfway laying on top of the bag of the peanuts. He's laying he's got his upper body kind of on top. And the best thing about these peanut bags, and I guess imagine it like a beanie cushion, because it's got the peanuts and the weight of it's going down. So it probably extremely comfortable. And this guy was completely asleep, and he had it to where he was against the wall, and there's a row of these gigantic peanut bags, and he's wedged himself in between the wall comfortably, probably extremely comfortably. He's got the wall supporting them. And then now he's just kind of hung over the bag of peanuts in front of him. And this guy, I think we had a question to ask him, because he was the operator for that room or whatever it was. So we had walked back and forth trying to find this guy, because we had a question about, hey, do you need help unloading them at 1 o'clock? We'll be here to help you unload it. Or so, I don't know what it was, but we were walking through this room trying to find this guy. And he's normally in here. He's normally doing something, because he's operating the peanut room that day. And we couldn't find the guy. And we had walked back about 3 times trying to find this guy within the period of an hour or something like that. And I finally kind of was able to, no way. And also of note, remember guys, we're wearing white uniforms. So this guy is, and we have on a white bump helmet, almost like a white plastic safety helmet. You could not, if this guy wore a white sheet, that would be the only way to improve his white camouflage in this room. It was hilarious. And when he finally either woke up as we were coming towards him, because we're wearing earplugs too, so we're probably yelling his name. Just let's pretend his name is Gary, because you kind of have to raise your voice in there because of the sound of the machinery, and then we're wearing some earplugs. And the guy finally comes to, and he smiles real big, and then he just blows it off like, hey, thanks for waking me up. That was a good nap. What do you guys need? Are you guys going to help me unload some of the peanuts at 1? And that's how just the conversation went. Like he didn't miss a beat. And so that is my ultimate hiding place. And it's called Sleeping in the Peanut Room. And everything there is white. We're dressed in white. Our bump helmets are in white. And he even had a white beard and a white mustache. So you could not have a better costume, a better hiding place. He gets the White Ninja Award for sure. The second fantastic hiding spot would be what's known as the flower silo. So almost, and you can even drive past the place and you can see these 2 gigantic square shaped. You can see it's different. It just looks like 2 big metal stacks. Okay. But there's no smoke coming out of it. And what it is if I'm explaining this right, it's this gigantic steel container. And I think the size of it is, this one building, this one shaft is about, I don't know how many stories it is. It is mega tall. I'm just saying that you start at the bottom of it, and it's got the steel scaffolding stairs that goes all the way to the top, and it does this zigzag number. And you have to stop at least twice before you even get to the top of it. And when you finally reach the very top of the flower silo, there's this little bitty landing area there. And there's just like metal table or something. And then you've got a door that leads out to the roof. And then you're on, I think the flower silo is the tallest point of the candy factory, is the very top of the flower silo. There's all kinds of urban stories of people falling asleep up there. being locked out of the roof or whatever, being asleep up there for an entire 8-hour shifts or something like that. So it could be true, because by the time you climb to the very top of the flour silo, maybe it's, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to exaggerate, but maybe, I don't know what, 20 floors, maybe 20. It may even be, I don't know. It is super high. It is super high. But even if you were up there doing things you shouldn't be doing at the very top floor, at the penthouse floor, you're gonna look down, and you could see people coming up. You could look down through the steel girding and see them, or you could hear them one. But that would be a very good hiding spot. But not really, because if you were found at the very top of the silo, there's literally nothing up there at the top for you to do other than be passed out asleep. Or, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we were stationed at the flour silo sometimes, and then our job was to start at the very top with air guns, air handlers, and then we would basically just blow the flour that was spitting out. Just, what would you call it? Just where the big machinery would just spit some of the dust in the flour. And so we would be assigned sometimes to start at the very top and just kind of blow it all down, and then take breaks, let it settle. So unless you were really doing that or going to the top to get on the roof to do some roof maintenance, being found at the very top of the flour silo probably wouldn't look good. I mean, not that people caught you or you were in trouble or anything, but the top of the flour silo was a very interesting place to check out sometimes. Thirdly, this is pretty funny. So because you could leave your areas, it depends on what team you were on and what task you had at the candy factory. There were some people that were they were called industrial cleaners, and I was on some of those teams. And that's where your job was. You would have several areas, and you were not on a production belt. You were not on a production team or the manufacturing team. You just had different areas of the plant where you just had to clean and maintain. We talked about the candy spills, the chocolate spills, and all those other kinds of things like that. And so if you were on the industrial cleaning team, you really you were almost like a free agent, and people knew you were on your way to clean. There was no guessing about it. But I think some of the folks that worked there abused some of the freedoms we had, and they really took advantage of how big the place was, and they took advantage of how unpoliced we were, to the point to where I remembered this one. This was hilarious. One of the lower level basements had a bathroom, and in the men's room, and I remember before they removed the privacy bathroom door, you really could sit there and fall asleep, because it was you had your earplugs in, but then you had the roar of the machinery just way in the background. And I'm telling you, I could see where somebody could go in there, and it was just a cool place just to go for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. If you had to go to the bathroom, it was a super private place. Then you go back to work or something like that. And then one day they just removed the door. And so when I went in there one day, and I remember seeing the door removed, I laughed so hard. I went and got my coworkers. I was like, "Hey, guess what? It finally happened." And I guarantee you, there's some guy was in there for maybe 25, 30 minutes, and probably just passed out and fell asleep on the floor. And somebody walked in and seen somebody on the floor beside the toilet, and that was the end of that bathroom door. I don't know that for fact, but that was our theory, and that's a pretty good theory. So probably to this day, there's no door there, because they don't want you falling asleep and crashing out. And they may have a point, because that place, you could really hide there, as you can imagine now from these stories. Number two, there were several sets of people that were on the shift work. So if you got hired on there full time, you were on shift work. So it was awful. And that's one of the things that keeps a lot of people from being there full time. It's because it's 1 week first, next week second, next week third, and then you get a full days off, several days off. And it is a nightmare. I mean, just imagine feeling like garbage, hot garbage, 24/7. And that's probably what it could be. So I have no doubt that people fell asleep there, and you can't blame them if you're on shift work. So, okay, let's see what else I got here. Okay, last one as far as the hiding places go. I had one of my coworkers I was talking about in one of the earlier videos. Let's just say his name's Jesse. And so you would stay up late betting that you're going to make up a little bit in rest the next day at work. Isn't that crazy? And Tuesday mornings was the day that I knew this is going to be an easy morning. I can stay up really late on a Monday night, because Tuesday morning it's going to be pretty gravy until about 9 a.m. or something. And so on Tuesday mornings, me and Jesse, we had and I don't even know the name of the department we had to clean, but We went into one room, and some of these rooms were so cool. Like the rooms you would get to them, it would just be this gigantic garage door, and it would just slide this industrial door to the side, or it would raise it up, and it was just so cool. You would pull this, special rope, and then it would just you'd walk in the room, and then the room you just walked in either had a different temperature or it had a different smell to it. It may be peanuts, it may be caramel, it may be chocolate, it may be the Twix machines. It was just a super cool place to work. And so we're going through these double doors, and they would go up 2 flights, and then we'd have to go through another set of doors, and then we're going through another stairwell, and then we're up top. We're up top in this room, and I don't even, to this day, I don't even really know what this thing even did. But sometimes it would leak chocolate, I guess, or M&Ms, and so we would be in there cleaning it up. But it was in the middle of the factory, way up top. But before we would clean, Jesse wanted to watch the sun come up. So our shift would start about 7:30 in the morning. And then you got to factor in, you got that 30 minutes of us just sitting in the locker room, changing our clothes, putting on our white uniforms. And then you got to walk all the way to the break room to get your agenda for the day. And then you've got to walk all the way to your workstation. And so by the time we got there, I mean, easily an hour's passed. And we've not even done anything but clock in and change clothes. But Jesse still needed to start his day by watching the sun come up. And he used to dip that cherry chewing tobacco. For those of you that used to do chewing tobacco, hopefully you've stopped. If you chew chewing tobacco right now, just stop, please. But he would chew that cherry tobacco. And it was pretty delicious, actually. And so I would always be quitting tobacco, but I could never turn down his cherry dipping tobacco on Tuesday mornings, watching the sun come up. And he was kind of like, he was my mentor. But they called it our mentor, your training guide, anything but mentors. But anyway, so I just kind of had to follow him and do what he told me to do. And so he would sit there and watch the sun come up there on the top of the candy factory, several hundred feet up in the air. And it was really pretty because they had like 3 ponds in the background. And so it was pretty cool watching the sun come up. But he loved it. That was like his favorite part of the day ever. That was his favorite part of the week ever, was on Tuesday mornings with a mouthful of cherry chewing tobacco and me as his cohort watching the sun come up. Yeah, all right. And so let's talk about some of these photos here. Let's do these in a particular order. Let's start with, let's start with this one here. All right, so this one here, we're taking probably the year 1999, 2000 again. Do they even have the dates written on them? They used to. Okay, they used to, but no dates. But anyway, here we're looking at a photo of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 very good-looking dudes just hanging out doing nothing. And so we're in between waiting on a truck full of caramel to come in so we can unload it. I don't know what's going on here exactly, but we're on break. We're taking a break. I don't think we're on break. We're probably in between breaks waiting to do something. So we'll take a break. And so these are some of my coworkers there. It's pretty cool. Some of the coworkers that you get to know with whatever your job, like you would never hang out with these people in person. These guys are twice my age. But man, they were absolutely hilarious. And here is another photo of us. And here these gentlemen are just chopping up the world's woes, trying to figure out the answer to the problems of that day. Now, if you can see the guy who's got, I don't know, maybe brown curly hair in the middle of the photograph, and you're looking at the old white haired dude beside him. So that guy's name, and I don't care if we share names. I hope he's still with us. I don't know. Let's just call him Jack. So the white haired guy, Jack, he was a pretty funny guy. He was not funny. He was actually kind of mean sometimes, but he was kind of funny in his own way. And he would always talk about how people were in mourning. And then he would ask about who you were working with that day. And he would say, are they depressed? Are they in mourning? Are they depressed? Are they in mourning? I don't know why he would do that, but it's pretty funny. And but he would give us nicknames. So me and this guy's name here, his name was Jerry, the guy with the brown hair. And he became my partner after Jesse, the guy with the chewing tobacco, he just quit or wanted to do something different or something like that. I think he became a stay-at-home dad, if I'm not mistaken. As we're talking about, yeah, I think he moved in with his girlfriend and then he just quit work because she was working or something. I don't know, something like that. Something really fitting happened, really. But anyway, so Jerry became my new partner and I became Jerry's mentor. So Jack here would give us nicknames. I guess he only did that so my name is Michael Allen, as you know. And so the trick was he would name you with somebody famous. Before, Jeff gave me the name Rock, because I moved to a whole different team at some point. But Jack, he would take your name, Michael Allen, and we're going to name you Michael Buffer, the famous boxing ring announcer. Let's get ready to rumble guy. Okay, his name's Michael Buffer. So he would take your name, Michael. Okay, that relates to Michael Buffer, somebody famous. We're going to drop your first name and just call you by that last name nickname. Super weird. So guess what my nickname was? Just Buffer. Buffer, just Buffer. So he took Jerry. He took Jerry's name. Well, who's the most famous Jerry you know? Jerry Springer. So he dropped the Jerry and then he just called him Springer. But it was so funny because this guy got so weird about being called Springer. We just called him Jerry Springer. Jerry Springer. And this guy looks nothing like Jerry Springer. He doesn't act like Jerry Springer at all. I think he probably went to church about 6 times a week. He's wearing dress socks underneath his work uniform. I mean, just the most straight-laced guy, the opposite of Jerry Springer. And we loved calling him Jerry Springer. The entire factory finally caught on to it. Hey, have you heard about the guy named Jerry Springer? But it's not Jerry Springer at all. But anyway, that was pretty funny. And then we're looking at another photograph here. This is inside the M&M Mars, one of the inside M&M Mars break room. You can't find these photos on the internet. So this one here was taken by somebody, and this is a photograph of the break room. This is one of the lower level break rooms. You can see how it's kind of industrial looking there. You've got the vent tubes, and you've got the vents overhanging there, and you've got a couple of, you can see that big steel column there in the middle, and then you've got some vending machines. We've got some picnic tables. We got wood picnic tables. They had orange, green, blue, yellow, red for the color of the M&Ms. Isn't that neat? And so some coffee machines, Gatorade machines, sandwich machines, and then of course you've got some break rooms there. Where there's restrooms, and oh yeah, even the payphone's there. So we used to use that payphone all the time back in the day. All right, so that's the break room. And then finally, here is a photograph of me and Jack, the guy that gave everybody nicknames. And this is a photograph of me using the telephone. I'm not actually using the telephone. I'm pretending to be using the telephone for this photograph, but you can see how good looking I was back then still, huh? Right. And you can see the sideburns. We had the sideburns going halfway down your head. And in the background, you can see, now I know these pictures are blurry. These are from a long time ago, but you can see some of that machinery there in the background. And is there a yellow? Yeah, you can even see like a little yellow railings in the background, way in the back there. That's pretty cool. So you guys actually get an idea what I'm talking about. The Google images that are from the candy factory or a very similar candy factory are even better than these, but these are actual original photographs that I thought was cool. And I know I'm missing a couple, but they're probably blurry anyway. But I think the internet did a good job of providing us with some really good inside photographs of what a candy factory looks like. And of course, they show up even better than that. All right, let's switch gears here. We're going to bring up another 2 stories. We're going to wrap this up. We're going to talk about 2 stories from Jeff, one of my best friends from the candy factory, one of the funniest people that I have ever met. Ever. Jeff Evans. He is still radio silent on Facebook. If I knew where he lived, I may drive there. As creepy as that is, there's just no way to get a hold of him. But so back in the year 2000, of course, we're on break. And I meant to bring a prop for this, but man. All right. So we'll just pretend this is a magazine. And so, but back in the day, people would bring wrestling magazines because there was no cell phones. The internet really wasn't, it really wasn't happening. And so you had no cell phones. And of course, when cell phones began, these are burning my ears. When cell phones began anyway, they weren't really, hooked up to the internet, were they? So it wouldn't have mattered. But we had magazines back then, newspapers and magazines. But magazines, of course, is a lot more interesting to read. And so you would bring your wrestling magazines. If you were a lady, you would bring your fashion magazines, hunting magazines, fishing magazines, sports magazines, magazines of tennis shoes, or whatever. And so there was being in the Great South here, we've got a lot of hunters. There's a lot of hunting areas, and there's a lot of what would you say? There's a lot of wild game worth hunting. Let's say you kill. For the people on the West Coast or live in a city, you have no idea what I'm talking about. When you kill a deer, you and your family have meat to make ground beef, lasagnas, burgers, whatever requires meat. You and your family's going to have meat for maybe 4 months. That one deer could give you 3 or 4 months of all the ground meat you could ever want. And it's going to be better than the meat that comes from a big meat company, like one of those big corporate brand things that's spiked with all the chemicals and the whatever. So hunting is a big deal for all the right reasons. And so a lot of guys there were hunters. It's a good sport. It's fun. And it's a means for food, really good food. And so hunting magazines were a big deal. And one day we were sitting in the break room, and I think his name was Ollie, one of our friends, Ollie. And he was, I mean, just deep into this hunting magazine. And he's talking with a buddy of his. And so Jeff was so funny. And Jeff's one of those guys that only Jeff could get away with the stuff Jeff did. You know, those kinds of people that only they can get away with it. If you tried it, it would be weird or you'd get in trouble. But Jeff would come up in people's conversation and he'd be like, "What are you guys talking about? Show me what you guys are talking about." And so they were just so serious about studying about this particular magazine about archery, specifically crossbow archery. And so he's like, "A man's got to have a good crossbow." And he would squint his eyes like this. And that when he would squint his eyes, you knew he was just full of baloney. And he's making fun of either something you said or what he just heard or what he's repeating, he's making fun of. But he's saying it in such a dry, sarcastic way. You can't tell if he's kidding or not, but it comes out 1,000 times funnier than anybody else who would try to do it. And so that was the going thing there. A man's got to have a good crossbow, Rock. Because then my nickname got upgraded to the Rock from the wrestling. A man's got to have a good crossbow, Rock. He's got to. He's got to. And so he was giving those guys heck about their crossbows, and they were cracking up because he's just the funniest guy. He's that guy. And so for the next week or two, all we heard was Jeff was just randomly, he would ask you, he'd be like, "Rock, you guys celebrate Christmas? You and your family, your mom and daddy?" Yeah, Jeff. He's like, "You reckon your mom and daddy's going to get you maybe a crossbow this year? What if you asked them for a crossbow? What if could they get you a crossbow, you figure, Rock? Because a man's got to have a good crossbow. A good crossbow." I can't do it justice. This guy had us in tears with that crossbow bit for 2 weeks. Crossbows are super legit. I looked up before I went on the air. Crossbows, even in medieval times, crossbows could go through body armor. Crossbows is one of the most effective ways to eliminate deer and wild boar. And it's somehow healthier for the environment because there's no shells or gunpowder being produced. There's no sound of it. Super, super lethal, super deadly. And anyway, crossbows are a big deal, but it's not as a big deal as what Jeff made it out to be when he repeated 1,000,000 times for 2 weeks, "A man's got to have a good crossbow, Rock. How many times I got to tell you? Ask your mommy and daddy, get you a crossbow this Christmas. What are you doing? How can you call yourself a man without a crossbow?" It was hilarious. You just had to be there. Jeff was also a matchmaker. So Jeff, what would Jeff do without the candy factory? I have no idea because he was our comedian. He was our wrestling. He knew everything about wrestling, and we knew a lot about wrestling. Jeff knew even more than that about wrestling. Jeff was also a matchmaker. So Jeff got that Claudia girl matched up with somebody. You remember the story with the girl with the tongue ring, and he would dangle his keys on it. And so he got her matched up with somebody there. And then he matched me up with a girl there. And I mean, we really didn't date. I mean, I think we went out on maybe 2 or 3 dates or something like that. We just didn't hit it off for some reason. But let's say her name was, I don't know. Let's say her name was Karen. And her name was not Karen. I don't ever dated a Karen. But it just came to my head. So he introduced us in the dining room. Like I was in there me and Jeff had just got done eating or something. And so we were just leaving because we have to report back to our line of work. Our break was over. And so she comes in with some of her friends and he's like, hey. And he's like, Rock, come over here. He's like, "Have you met Karen?" And he named the city she was from. Like he was introducing people from like the medieval times. Like, Rock, I would like you to meet, Princess Diana from the Lakes of Charles, from Frankfurt, Germany, or like he was introducing her neighborhood or something. It was hilarious. Like how you would introduce somebody like on some movie or something. It was, guys, you just had to have been there, man. And so I'm like, no, I've never met her. Hi, how are you? And she's like, hey, how's it going? She can't even talk because we're laughing so hard at Jeff. Okay, see you later. And that's how it went. And then we went to have wings and watch some fight at some sports bar or something like that. And now this was a long time ago, but I said all that to say this. A long time ago, before I got into recovery, I used to drink a lot. That is not a big secret. And I ran over her mailbox twice. And the first time I kind of banged it up pretty good. And the second time I completely just removed it from the planet Earth. And so, so I had to go and repair her mailbox twice. And that was just for me, just maybe I picked her up to go to Buffalo Wild Wings or something like that. And then I would drop her off. And then as I'm backing out, I drank way too much. You guys know that, but I'm better now. And that was a long, long time ago. I'm cured from that. Thank God. And so, but long story short, I took out her mailbox, not once, but twice. And the second time was so fatal. I had to go to Lowe's and purchase an entire new mailbox and the wood thing. And so, and I remember there, so like, I think our third date was me replacing the mailbox at her house, mailbox and what would you call it? The post. So that was like the third date was me replacing that. And it was pretty funny. And then after the end, big surprise, I don't think we hit it off past the end because she's like, you're just going to continue to ruin my mailboxes and drive over them. And so Monday morning, it was hilarious. So we were just stayed friends, because we worked together. But we were sitting there eating, having coffee with our group because you work as a team. There may be 15, 18, 20 people on your team, so we're kind of spread out. So we're not really together, but we're still on the same. We work on the same shift or something like that with the same coworkers. And so Jeff comes in, and I don't know how Jeff heard about this story, but he heard about it somehow. I think she told a few people, it's like, hey, that don't invite him over to your house. He's just going to accidentally run over all your mailboxes. And so Jeff comes up to our table and he's like, well, Rocky, Karen, how'd y'all's weekend go? Huh? How's things going? Did y'all replace any mailboxes over the weekend? Did y'all get a chance to fix anybody's mailboxes? Huh? And it was so funny. Her face turned so red and she had to leave the break room. It was pretty funny. And I've never seen her since. But he was light years ahead of his time in comedy. He should be doing stand-up specials all over the world. His name is Jeff Evans. Help me find him. But guys, we are el completo with the Candy Factory stories. Unless I find some more photographs, unless I get in touch with Jeff Evans, that is pretty much it for the Candy Factory series. I really hope you enjoyed it. And we did get lots of comments, lots of messages about the Candy Factory. And when I was up at the Bible College in the year 2001, those guys enjoyed hearing some Candy Factory stories because it's a place unlike any other. And so, guys, thanks for watching. Also, on a separate special note, man, have I been doing some good things lately? And I know it's super cliche when people say, I'm becoming a better version of myself. Let's get a little serious here. I know it's super cliche when people say I'm becoming the best version of myself. I've got mixed thoughts on that statement, and we'll talk about it soon. But I'm actually going to be doing a separate channel. So soon, not today or not tomorrow, I'm going to be devoting a special channel, and I've been wanting to do this for a minute. And it's going to be specifically for everything spiritual, everything regarding prayer, alcohol recovery, relationship recovery. And that's what I've just been diving into as of lately. You can't quite put your finger on what's the factors, who's to blame. Should you stick with it? Should you bail or sabotage? What are the things that I'm doing that is accidentally self-sabotaging my relationships or your relationships? Just put your name in the blank. So if you're like me and you're from the recovery background, you always want to bet on somebody who's been through recovery because they've been through hell and back. So it's not a person, that person, he's a quitter. He used to be a junkie. He used to be this, that, and the other. You bet on those people almost every time because if they've completed a successful recovery program, those people are the ones you want to hire. I'm not ashamed of my background at all because I know I can do anything. I've been through hell and back and I can go through it again. And so now here lately, I've just been diving very lightly, but I'm just like, whoa. into the world of how to become a better man in a relationship. And I know there's thousands of YouTube channels out there on it, thank God. Or, how to be a better woman in a relationship. And we need, I think, all of that we can get, because the relationship failures, they run very similar to addictive behaviors. I have just recently, so I've taken some time to look into myself. And this is what addicts do well if they're in a recovery program. They're overthinkers, which can be bad, but I would rather do that than the other. So recovery people, they get, when something bad happens to them, they lose something or something painful happens to them, they do a really good job of looking inwardly. And instead of quitting, instead of giving up on it, what we do in the recovery community, or at least what I'm doing, is, where did I go wrong? There are some things that I'm doing that I'm not seeing, or I'm failing to see, and I'm failing to make the connection on what is happening in fill in the blank area of your life. And so what I've been doing is I have found a new recovery community that I did not know existed, and I had just started it. And so I'm very excited about the new book that I've got, the new curriculum that I'm learning to, and I'm in a new support, and it does not replace Alcoholics Anonymous at all. It is just another community of recovery and self-help that I'm so super excited about. It's really a guide and a program for people who have been exposed to either traumatic things or addictive things. And because of that, it is affecting your relationships in the here and now. And it helps you identify those. And it puts you in a small group of other people that's kind of going through that or have been through that. And I just started with it a couple of weeks ago. And I'm telling you, man, it is fantastic. And so I'm super pumped about that. So the shame of what people deal with and what we need to do to get help. If you really want to be a better person, you won't have shame about it. And if you're a good person, you won't care what a person's going through as long as they're getting help. You've got no room to judge. You're either with them or you just need to move out of the way. And man, I am excited about this new area of learning for me. But anyway, so that's going to be a whole separate channel that's going to be committed to that kind of content, very serious and helpful content. We're going to leave this channel here, and that's going to be the channel for jokes about the candy factory, the time we jumped on a train in Tulsa and fell off of it, and that is just a garbage can full of just funny stories or interesting stories or scary stories or some crazy stories. Like we went to basic training. We're going to tell you about it. The time that maybe one of Osama bin Laden's bodyguards called my apartment in Columbus, Ohio. So we're going to keep all of that random weird stuff here. And then the separate channel is going to be for very helpful spiritual and recovery topics. I don't want to mix the audiences. That's fine if you jump back and forth. We want you to watch as much as possible. But I don't want people trying to get recovery help and then they watch a story about the guy that fell asleep in the candy factory on the forklift. And so they don't know, is this a joking channel or is this a serious channel? So we're just going to divide those. We're going to divide them. Okay. And so anyway, again, that's exciting stuff coming up. And I don't really have a schedule when I put things out. It just happens. And so maybe I will probably start that channel officially maybe in August. So anyway, enough rambling. I got to go. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting. And see you guys next time. Thanks.